Bienvenidos a este programa Alternativa.
Inside the Miami studios of Radio República, these broadcasters have a unique mission. For 7 days a week via shortwave radio, they transmit to the people of Cuba and say theirs is a message of resistance. For 10 years they've been reporting on Cuba's opposition movement, and for many here, President Obama's visit is a step in the wrong direction.
What Obama is doing is not engaging Raul Castro, he's befriending Raul Castro. The policy should be divorced from Raul Castro, engaged with the Cuban resistance and the Cuban people. The only sane policy towards Cuba is to use the substantial international leverage Obama has to call for free elections in the island.
It's a sentiment echoed by many in Miami's so-called exiled community. For those that came here many years ago, any move towards normalization isn't well received.
Every time Raul Castro takes the microphone, he reiterates that they're not going to change this.
SYLVIA IRIONDO arrived as a teenager and has spent her adult life fighting for change on the island. Like many of her generation, she thinks President Obama's visit sends the wrong message.
We are going to go there at a moment when there's more repression, when our visit will serve to empower those in power.
Among Miami's mostly older Cuban Americans, then, there is still deep skepticism for the normalization process. They say it began over a year ago, and they're still not seeing the concessions they would like to see for the Cuban people. But when you speak to younger Cuban Americans, mostly who were born in the United States, they view things very differently. Raul Maus is sympathetic to how many older Cuban Americans feel, but is also ready to embrace a new approach.
Folks of my generation tend to be a little bit more curious about what changes in policy could yield. It's just very different, though. I don't have the scars and the trauma of being in exile the way that my grandparents do.
Freedom for Cuba! Ultimately, every Cuban American in Miami wants better things for the island, but it's how that's done that causes the most friction. Andy Gallagher, Al Jazeera, Miami, Florida.